Richard Cantu. With the most coronavirus cases in the U.S., the New York City area is being focused upon by more states. Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
Those entering the state of Texas through an airport, either in New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut, will be subject to a mandatory self-quarantine for 14 days or for the duration of their stay in Texas, whichever is shorter.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker noted increasing numbers of cases away from the Chicago metropolitan area.
When it was just in Cook County, there were people in other parts of the state who said, it'll never come here, this is just a Chicago problem or just a Cook County problem. Well, now we've seen it every region, an increasing number of cases in central and southern Illinois.
On Friday, the House will vote on the Senate-passed $2.2 trillion coronavirus relief package. Speaker Nancy Pelosi vowing passage. Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says wait to see the impact on the economy of previously passed relief measures.
If these bills are done correctly, let them put them to work to get through this. If something's needed in the future, let's make that decision. But let's not make that decision without allowing these bills to be put into the economy.
Proper cleaning and social distancing to be in effect on the House floor during the vote on Friday. The government reported that a record 3 1/3 million Americans filed first-time claims for unemployment benefits last week.
That is nearly 5 times the worst week of job losses since we've seen since the Great Recession. In the Great Recession, the worst week was 665,000. That is a really gigantic number, and it is unprecedented.
ABC's Rebecca Jarvis.
Time is 12:14 p.m. and I am here in the studio with the USFK Commander General Robert Abrams, and we are going to be talking a little bit about recent COVID-19 mitigation efforts as well as the public health emergency. How's it going, sir?
Okay, Mystic, thanks for having me, and to everybody out there, good morning. I was actually supposed to do this on Monday, and in light of recent developments here at Camp Humphreys over the last 24 hours, I said, let's see if we can do it today, because I want to explain to the community kind of where we are. I'm happy to talk about the public health emergency declaration and what's that about, but I'm also ready to talk about kind of what's going on with Camp Humphreys today.
All right, so with Camp Humphreys, I know we've had some recent changes like you were saying, so what are some of the changes that we are seeing and how is this going to affect people?
Yeah, so look, yesterday we were notified of case number 11 here for U.S. Forces Korea, and we had taken appropriate actions with case number 10 on Tuesday, and unfortunately case number 11 is a co-worker of case number 10, and so because they work in an office, even with plenty of social distancing inside the office space, it was most likely passed from patient 10 to patient 11. And of course that patient 11, or case number 11, had frequented some places here on Camp Humphreys, and we executed our battle drill with speed and violence of action yesterday, and immediately began trace analysis and extensive trace analysis across the installation. The 8th Army commander, out of an abundance of caution, had intended to just reduce his headquarters, because it's both 10 and 11 are out of the 8th Army headquarters, that he was going to go to minimum manning today. He and I spoke this morning, and I decided that we should put the entire installation on minimum essentially watch teams only, and everyone else stay home, stay in the barracks, don't go out except for bare essentials, to include me. Your listeners can't see me, but I'm in civilian attire. This is appropriate attire for people who are working at home, or they're in the barracks. It's okay, but this is important enough for me to come in and sort of explain where things are here on Camp Humphreys and for the community.
So with the bus routes being closed and the taxis, certain things like that, are those things that are going to be that way for the almost like indefinitely until the situation gets better, or is that just because of some of the contact tracing, like with the gyms and stuff like that? So
we don't know. The shorter answer is we don't know. We're going to need to get through today. The trace teams are worked through the night. They're working through today. and they're hard at work. The phone lines are people are doing the right things, right? We publish the hotspots. People are doing the exact right thing. Hey, I was there. They're calling. So those of you who haven't been able to get through, we acknowledge your frustration. Be patient and take orders from the COVID hotline. And we've taken some other extraordinary measures inside the 8th Army and mandated both service members outside of the immediate group and mandated additional test, or not additional, but testing for doggone near anybody that might have worked in any proximity to case number 10 and 11 out of an abundance of caution. So that'll apply to our contractors, DoD civilians, and our service members. And then service members in this particular organization, they're all moving to our isolation building, again, out of an abundance of caution. So we're going to take it day by day, and we'll see. I suspect it'll be like this at least for a couple of days. And but look, here's the message to everyone, and I want to be really clear about this. I'm willing to do everything possible in my authority to prevent the spread of this virus on our bases and into our formations and into our families. And we have to balance that with maintaining mission readiness. Unlike other places in our armed forces, we actually have a mission here. It's a sacred responsibility, so we have to balance that. But right now, I have tipped the scale out of an abundance of caution to basically limit everybody's movement, avoid contact, only go out for bare minimum essentials until we can sort of get our arms around the full scope of the trace, and then get those people medically assessed, and we'll determine if we've got to test them or not. And of course, we've got our own organic testing right here at the Brian D. Allgood Community Hospital. We received, over a month ago, we received augmentation. Again, looking ahead, we predicted that something like this might happen. We've got our own organic testing capability. We've got additional docs, nurses, etc. We got the right lab people, and they're cranking them out as fast as we can. And of course, if necessary, we can still fall back on KCDC, the Korean Center for Disease Control. It's well documented. They've got an incredible test capability throughout the Republic of Korea. They've been great partners. They've been hugely supportive, and they'll support us in any way we need. So we've got to take some time to get our arms around it and make sure that we have limited, the effects, the spread of from case 10 and 11. And as it turns out, about an hour ago, I got a phone call again from General Bills with another case out of the same shop. Right, so we're now up to 12, and so we've begun trace on him as well. So this is all out of an abundance of caution, and those details will come out. They're working on the trace now. Looks like the initial read is the trace for number 12 is the same as number 10. They were sort of in the same places, so we're all keeping our fingers crossed that it stays that way and that we've limited contact. But if you go back to case number 10, during our interview with case number 10, we found out that this particular DoD contractor had not exactly followed our strong recommendations for limiting to essential activities off the installation. And in fact, he admitted that he had dined in at a local restaurant. And we had over the last couple of weeks, we had 4 or 5 other documented instances of non-service members generally not complying with our strong recommendations. And that was really the impetus behind declaring the public health emergency. And I'm happy to take your questions about, so what does a PHE really mean?
Right, so I know when it got announced, that was the biggest thing, is people wanted to know how was that going to affect kind of their daily lives? Was that going to change anything? What does that necessarily mean for families and civilian employees here on the installation?
Yeah, that's great. So thanks for the opportunity. Public health emergency is a Department of Defense instruction title, but it's a bit misleading. It's a bit of a misnomer. And what it's fundamentally about is that there's assessed by the commander that there's indications of potential of widespread risk of a particular pathogen. And in this case, we're talking about COVID-19. But for me, most importantly, declaration of a public health emergency gives me additional authorities. And as we've put out through multiple, through statements, through through social media, etc., it's fundamentally about authorities. And what a PHE allows me to do is to gives me the authority for anyone with authorized access to a USFK installation. They're obligated to follow our guidance, right? Our recommendations. And those that are found to not comply, I now have the authority to bar them from the installation. I've been thinking about declaring a public health emergency for a month, to be honest with you. I had notified the Department of Defense a month ago and had this conversation with senior leaders. And I said, we're watching it close. But a month ago, everyone was being really compliant with our directives. And those that I don't have direct military authority over, like family members, contractors, and DOD civilians, everybody was being compliant. Over the last couple of weeks, we've probably, like I said, 5 documented cases of people becoming complacent. And I said, enough is enough. And, case number 10 was basically the straw that broke the camel's back. And so it's not a decision I made lightly. We had talked about this. I got great advice from our public health council. And, it was time to declare that public health emergency, fundamentally to give me the authorities. So what does it mean? What does it mean is that for those that I don't have military authority over, but they have access to the installation, they've got to follow our directives. And if we find out that they're not, then I have now the authority to bar them from the installation for up to 2 years, or for 2 years and could be extended. So it's a fairly significant penalty. But again, as I said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, legally, morally, ethically, to protect the force. And so we've moved into a sort of a new phase. Now, there's 100 questions out there. Well, what does that really mean for me, right? So we, well over a month ago, we published, when we went to HPCon Charlie, we published the do's and don'ts of, what you can and what you can't do. Military members get it, right? Everybody else was taking it as a suggestion, right? Highly recommended. So some, obviously, didn't pay as close attention as they needed to. And what everybody needs to understand is when you don't follow your directive, you are then taking risk for everyone else. It only takes one. And patient 10 is a prime example of what the impact of one can do inside our formations. It only takes one. So for us to maintain that balance, right, between protecting the force and the health of the force and mission readiness, keeping that in balance, our concept was make our bases safe havens, protect, the protective bubble. And for that to work, it requires 100% of everyone to follow the rules. It only takes one who's not compliant, who takes unnecessary risk, and it puts everybody else in danger. So, now what we owe the community, now now that it's gotten everyone's attention.